Hello and welcome back to the Gallagher Shots YouTube channel and podcast. We are back with another match reaction, the first match reaction which we have done in a little while, but what a match to start with. It is myself, your host, Kris, joined by Nichol, Iain and Daryl. I'm going to just dive straight into it, boys, and one of the main talking points on the build-up to this game was going to be two positions. So we will talk about left back soon enough. But Daryl, I come to you. Eddie Howe's playing an absolute blinder, lying through his teeth once again. Anthony Gordon was fit and ready to go.
Honest Eddie, yeah. Honest Eddie. Honestly. We've said this for a good while now that you cannot believe a word he says in a presser. So to be fair, it as much as it came as a surprise, it wasn't as big a surprise as it could have been. I mean, does he instruct Anthony Gordon to go out in crutches just to put everybody off the scent or something? You know what I mean? I don't get it. But he came in, he started, and he had a blinder as well. He did really well during the game, and contributed really well as well. So hey, just don't believe anything Eddie says.
I think you've nailed it. Absolutely nailed it, mate. It is something which we've grown used to as a fan base now, and it's worked both in our favour and against our favour, Ian, where Eddie Howe will say our players due back for an injury, then God knows what happens. A couple of months it's delayed by, so it has gone against it. But like Daryl's just said, it was great to see Gordon, because I was a little bit worried with Isak and Gordon missing allegedly that we would struggle in this game, and it's always good to have Gordon on the team sheet.
Yeah, I thought I was the same as you. I didn't quite know who would fill that void. Obviously, Barnes has just come back, but you don't want to just rush him back. So it would have probably left you with Murphy and Almiron, and I don't know how effective they would have been. But yeah, it was a really nice surprise. The only thing that I'm foaming about is that I took Eddie Howe's word as gospel and left him on my bench in my FPL. But yeah, it was nice to see him, and just to echo what Daryl said, I thought the first half, I thought he was the standout player for me, and I think it's sort of been it's shadowed what he's been like all season. He's been sort of out and out performer of the season for me. Well, switching, I think Shea was having it, and he was switching the play to Gordon, and his first touch and then his driving runs to get at them, I thought was really, really good, and it was causing them some bother as well. So it was really nice to see him on the team sheet.
Nichol, you were on the match preview as well. What was your prediction for this game?
I said 2-2, so I wasn't too far off. Luckily, we got a goal on the right side of that. But at half time, I was thinking, I might be right here. But there was always going to be probably more goals in that second half. So
yeah, 100%. And so we said we're going to talk about the left back position, but I just wanted to put that to one side for the time being, and we'll talk about it towards the end of the podcast. But Daryl, great start by the lads. Bruno, what a finish. It's something which we've clearly been working on in training set pieces. It looked like Trips had lost it at one point. It looked like he was about to get tackled, but it's a pinpoint ball into the back post, really, the edge of the 6-yard box, and the space that Bruno runs into, and the finish from him on the volley just to tuck it into the right hand side of the goal was phenomenal, mate.
It was an absolutely fantastic finish, and I would point of reference for anybody watching or listening to this is if you go back to the Brentford game at home at the start of I say at the start, it was in October, but in October of last season when we beat them 5-1, and you will see a near carbon copy of that goal. So it's a routine we have used to success before, albeit this time, as you rightly say, Trippier was nearly cut off. It required Anthony Gordon to put in a bit of a block on, I think it was Hudson-Odoi was closing him down at that point, but he got his foot on it, and it was a perfect cross right into the he dipped it right into that space at the back post that was left free, and Bruno was just, he had the freedom of the whole city of Nottingham, to be honest, to take his time. And do you know what it is to hit that first time in the way he did with the outside of his foot? It just had Matt Sells on the floor, and he buried it in that bottom corner. It was lovely to see.
That was a strange one to see as well, wasn't it, Ian? Matt Sells being in goal for Forest, and I'm not sure if you've watched the the highlights back through the Newcastle channel on YouTube, the one where Razor and Anderson are commenting on. Razor was having Matt Sells' life right the way through. He's just griefing him from start to finish. The poor bloke.
I haven't watched it, but that'll definitely be on the watch list. Now, I thought when just a complete sidestep, I thought that was the strangest transfer of the window. Like, I remember when he was at us, I thought he was dreadful. Like, he didn't command his box. His hands were made of paper, which we'll touch on in our last goal. And I thought they've got two fairly decent keepers as well, but. Bizarre one, but it's worked to our favour. I would
Matt Sells is the one. Was it pre-season where he dropped the ball? Was it pre-season where he just dropped it? Am I thinking of a completely different keeper?
I think you might be right. I can't quite remember that far back, but I think you might be right.
I'm sure it was pre-season where he dropped
probably
it.
Probably done it in a league game as well.
Probably. But yeah, it was an absolutely fantastic finish by Bruno, Iain. It was great to see Bruno's second goal of the season. I believe that one was. Obviously, we'll get on. He does score another one later on in the game. But it only took 15 minutes for Forest to get back into the game. And this is where I probably want to touch on the left back position once again, because very similar to the game against Luton. You could see which side was going to be targeted, and it's becoming a bit of an Achilles heel for us right now. And they had a chance earlier on, Elanga, where it was very, very similar, where he just beats Dan Burn in a foot race, and it's always going to happen. We know that's going to happen. It's just how well we recover from that instance and how well Dubravka done. The first instance, Dubravka does really well. He makes a great save. Second one, Elanga's movement is fantastic. I can't deny that. You expect him to go on the byline and go around the outside, but he just cuts in the last minute and just runs centrally. Obviously, past Dan Burn, I think, is it Botman that's alongside him as well.
Comes across the cover, yeah.
Dubravka runs off his line in, and this is something which we have been quite harsh with Dubravka, saying that he doesn't come off his line quick enough. He tries it, and it's straight through his legs.
Yeah, there's a bit of, I wouldn't say comedy errors, but there's a bit of fault for the whole setup. I think the first chance that they had was, I think Morgan Gibbs White, where he puts it just past the post, and a couple of us were saying, Cher was at fault for that chance, and there was a couple were saying Dubravka should have come and got it, and that's what we missed Nick Pope about. But then to touch on the two Elanga chances, the first one where Dubravka actually pulls off the save, if you watch Dan Burn, he is starting ahead of him, but his body position, he's caught far too square onto the play, and Dan Burn isn't the most agile of fellas. So he's turning circle.
That's one way of putting it.
I'm trying to be very diplomatic, because you know what it is. I absolutely love Dan Burn. I think he's a class. He seems like a class bloke, and for all it's worth, he did do a class job in sort of since he's come in. It's just been sort of since that injury, he's tapered off in terms of his form and his performances. But yeah, he gets caught a little bit square on, and Dubravka does very well. Their actual goal, so. I think it comes from we're in a really good position. Miggy's got it, and I can't remember if it was Sky Sports or Match of the Day. But there was the highlighting that Longstaff goes to make a run sort of in the Longstaff channel, as it's affectionately known. And rather than Miggy cutting in, which I think he should done, he tries to put a ball down the line, and it's poor passing. They clear it, and because of that, you've got Bruno and Longstaff completely out of position. Miley is then caught between sort of going to the ball and trying to fill that sort of space. And I think it's Hudson-Odoi just...
It is Hudson-Odoi.
Hudson-Odoi, yeah.
You've got Elanga running against the slowest defence in the league as well, which is scary.
And like you say, he sort of like curves his run, not massively, but it's just slightly enough to throw Dan Burn off the scent. And obviously he's trying to run. I'll put at pace in quotations. He just doesn't deal with it. And then obviously you see Dubravka try and read it, and it's just a little toe punt through his legs. I was thinking if Dubravka stays on his line, does that goal happen? But I think it still happens. I think looking at it, he's ahead of both Burn and Botman. So. But like you say, we're targeted time and time again after that as well. And it is just unfortunate. But I think at the minute, Dan Burn is the weak link in that defence. And touching back on what Bestie said on Monday night, it's a combination of things where you don't have Pope sweeping up. You've possibly lost that yard or two of what little pace that he had, and you're getting no protection from the midfield, which is where all the sort of targeting's coming from.
I think the issue probably is that the midfield and with Joelin not being in there as well, a huge
He's a massive miss, yeah.
huge miss for us. What Joelin does, it just. I was going to say unsung hero, but he's not. Everybody knows what he brings to the table, Joe Linton. And with him not being there, then yes, that left-hand side and that left-hand flank, it's going to be targeted a lot more. It just is what it is. Hopefully it stops because it is becoming a bit of a worry. Yes, it wasn't massively this game because we did go on to get that result and then 3 points which were needed. But it could have ended a lot differently. What I was going to say, Daryl, that the move by Elanga was very much like a move which you would see in Formula One, where he's just in the slipstream of Dan Burn,
Yes.
and he just tucks it, bye, and just tucks it, and he's away.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we all knew the threat that he would provide with his pace, and it's not just him in that team. Hudson-Odoi and Morgan Gibbs-White have that ability as well. And another thing that was mentioned in the build-up to that goal was how Lewis Miley had been caught square to the ball in the build-up to that goal, which then released Morgan Gibbs-White to put the ball through for Elanga. And I think part of the problem that we have is that because of the way we try to attack and press, is that we don't give the defence enough cover. So at that point, when Miley gets caught, it's literally like the three centre backs. You have to refer to it in that point in the game is you had your Fabian Schär, and Dan Burn who had tucked in. So there's your three centre backs. They were the last line of defence, and as we've already mentioned, probably the slowest in the league. And they get caught out, and like you say, it's the way that Elanga his movement is so frightening for that slow paced defence is one way or the other way, so quick, so quick, and then all of a sudden, like you say, he gets caught in the slipstream. And then as the ball's now coming through the middle, he just darts inside a little bit, and then he ends up in between Botman and Burn, and they just can't catch him. And we mentioned Martin Dubravka before, and like you say, that very early chance for Morgan Gibbs-White, you can see when you watch it back that Fabian Schär is gesturing to Dubravka to come and clear this ball, and he stays on his line, and then Schär suddenly finds it where, I think it's not Morgan Gibbs-White, it's Hudson-Odoi is then suddenly in behind, and they get caught. And then with the Elanga chance as well, he does a great job to get down and block that shot. And I think that's what he's trying to do for the goal. However, because he's so far out, he then eliminates the use of his hands in any way, shape, or form, because you know what would happen if it hit a hand in that point. And he does try to hit the deck, but it's just so quick from Elanga that it's through his feet and it's into the bottom corner. I've been thinking back since that if he'd actually stayed on his line at that point, would it have been a goal? I mean, 9 times out of 10, probably, but I think he would have stood a better chance of stopping the shot if he'd have just stayed in his box or on his line. And it was interesting as well from a tactical point of view. We noticed this up until the point where we actually scored the goal, and then for whatever reason it reverted for a time, was that when we were pressing and attacking, that we actually went to that back three, and at a time it was either Kieran Trippier had stepped into partner Miley in midfield as the sitting midfielders, or on the next occasion it was Longstaff was sitting in partner Miley, and Kieran Trippier suddenly ended up wide right where Miggy would normally be, and Miggy had tucked into a 10. And we did that quite fluidly throughout that opening part of the game, and it really worked quite well because it sort of snuffed out Forest trying to break out from the back. But again, on those occasions where we all decided to press forward in midfield and forward line all going together, it just left a hole, and Forest were there to exploit it.
Yeah, the game obviously between the equaliser and our second, it was quite end at times as well. It was frightening, obviously, how fast Forest could hit us on the break. But once again, that's probably the lack of that number 6 role, which we'll have obviously recently. Just obviously, as soon as you find that pocket of space, you're away. Then we know for fine well, get that pocket of space, throw it down our left-hand side. You know that's going to happen every single time. But it was Newcastle that take the lead and take it to 2-1. And I just want to touch on a couple of things before we get the second one. Fabian is obviously fouled by Yates, isn't it? Who made
how he escaped
about 1,000 fouls.
He didn't even get a book. Like even in the first 20 minutes, I totted up. It was like I think 4 or 5 fouls. Like Should have had one of them blue cards that everyone's on about.
Well, we'll talk about a blue card very soon.
Oh God!
But once again, if you go and listen back to the highlights on the YouTube channel, John Anderson is once again going wild at Yates. He's just saying,
Going
"How has
ballistic,
he
isn't he?"
not been in the book yet?" And that was obviously following the challenge which he makes on Fabian the first time around, which we get the free kick from. Daryl, it's our second of the game, and it is Fabian who looked like he had a point to prove after picking up that challenge. And I just want to appreciate the header that comes back in from Botman. Botman just, I'm not sure if he means this or just sheer luck, but there is just that tiny, once again, just a little pocket of space over towards the other side of the 6-yard box, and Botman, just like a cushioned header, just knocks it in. And Fabian, once again, it's on the half volley, almost hits on the volley. I think it's on the half volley, it bounces just before, and he just tucks it. Great finish once again. And do you know what it is? A lot of people were worried that with Wilson's injury record and Isaac being fit, and obviously we've got the issue at left back with Dan Burn, I've solved it all. I've solved it personally. All you need to do is move Dan Burn into centre back, bring Tino in at left back, get Fabian, play him up top. He's fantastic. He's fantastic, mate.
He's a hell of a natural finisher, isn't he? And it doesn't have to be a raker from distance. It can be a lovely cushion finish like that. The two finishes against Aston Villa as well come into play there as well. And I just love that he's able to score so many goals from the position he plays. It's such an extra threat that we have. And like you say, the header across from Botman, it just, there was a nice bit of synergy there. It's like his partner assisted him with a goal in defence. You know what I mean? So, and we knew going into the game that Forest would struggle with set pieces, and those first two goals came from such. And that second one, you have to really hammer home how badly they defended that, because they allowed it to bounce before it even gets to Botman. Nobody's able to clear it first time. And it's like, if it was us defending like that, I'd be absolutely raging. Like, I mean, you cannot let a ball bounce like that in that position, and especially when we've got the height that we have. Obviously, we didn't win that first ball, but because it bounces and bounces so high, we have the advantage to win that second ball. And like you say, a lovely cushioned header across, and just to hit it the way he did, it was just buried it in the bottom corner. It was lovely. So
lovely to see. And Ian, Newcastle fans are cloud nine at this point, going into half time, 2-1 up against Forest. And in typical Newcastle United fashion, 46 or 40, in fact, it would be more than that. It was quite late. Almost because it was 5 minutes
50?
added. Yeah.
51 minutes, yeah.
5 minutes added on. It was just after that 5 minutes, the equaliser comes. And it's a shame. It's a huge deflection. Dubravka's already made his move to go to the left-hand side, or his left-hand side. And it's Hudson and Doy, isn't it, that has the strike, and it clips off Miley and just sails to Dubravka's right-hand side. There's literally nothing that he can do as a goalkeeper at that point, but it's just a shame that once again, it's just conceding a goal in a ridiculous time of a football match.
It's just really frustrating. Like I was saying in the group chat, just get into half-time ahead, see if you need to make any changes, because time and time before that, like you say, they were just attacking the left-hand side. And for all it's worth, I thought Dan Burn, the second half, was a lot more solid, give him his dues there.
I mean, a couple of decent sliding challenges as well.
And I thought he was obviously, he's about 9 foot tall, which helps, but I thought he was solid in the air as well. But yeah, it's just an absolute gut punch. Like, the only criticism of that one, I think, because you can see Miley's he's trying to get sort of out of him, but it's not like one of those ones where they dangle the leg, which I hate. I think we're seeing that I think it was Brighton where Cher did it for one of Evan Ferguson's goal. He just sort of puts his body there, but doesn't really like close him down. I think if he
it's like a horse challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you continue to close him down, it gets drilled straight into him, and it doesn't come off him. But again, I don't want to throw shade on Lewis Miley. He's 17 years old. Like, he's played about 20 odd games more than he should at this point. And he's young, so you'll learn from that. But yeah, it was just really frustrating to go in at level. I thought maybe he's on the balance of play. I think it was probably deserved. I think for the first 20 minutes of that first half, I think we looked so in control. Like, I know Forest was sitting a little bit deep, and notoriously we've struggled with that of late. But I think even opening them up, we were creating sort of chances where we could have got a shot off or like played a ball through. So It was just frustrating. And then they come out the second half, and I thought, to be honest, in the second half they were the much better side. But I think they were lucky to come out with 11 players. I think that Ryan Yates challenge on Share.
So that was just before the equaliser.
Yeah.
Just before the equaliser, and because you can see after we concede that goal, Fabian is on the deck and he is not happy. He's having to go at the referee at this point, saying like where's the free kick? And I did put a poll on Twitter at half time about that challenge as well, and obviously we've had the discussions about blue cards going into play at some point, which apparently is being obviously stopped and delayed now, but that's for a whole different day. So I did put on Twitter, on social media, saying, was that a red card? There was over 1,300 votes on it, and 53% said no and 47% said yes. So that's how split the decision was on it, Daryl. What was your thoughts? Because I thought it was a bit nasty.
Do you know what it is? And I could be wrong here, but I don't think we got a second look at it, did we? They never really showed a replay of it on TV.
Yeah, so,
and I would have liked to have seen it again.
A look. I think there was one after it, but then obviously VR check every single incident which happens.
Yeah. I mean, in real time, you think, oh, he's caught him quite badly there. And like I say, I would have loved to have seen it again just to see exactly how that played out, because when you see it on the one-off and it just absolutely drops Share, and you think, well, you know, he's done so much so far during the game as Yates, and he's got away with so much, then why hasn't he seen some sort of punishment for it anyway at that point? Whether it's a yellow or a red is relevant. He should have really seen some sort of punishment for that.
It's at least a foul. At least a foul.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, it was really strange. And, you know, Anthony Taylor is one of the better, well, supposedly one of the better referees in the league. And there seemed to be, that wasn't the only thing he seemed to miss against Forest last night. And it was a bit strange. And
but you're
like I say,
all for referees, Daryl, to let the game flow naturally, and not brandishing a yellow card as soon as it possibly can. But it was getting to that point where you're thinking, hang on, something needs to happen. Very similar to what we saw in the derby as well. The yellow cards were just firmly in the referee's pocket for a long time. But then when that challenge went in on Fabian Iain, I thought it has to be at least a foul and a yellow card. Then when I saw it back, I thought, actually, he's quite lucky that to not get a red card, because you have seen those given.
I think what saves him is I don't think there's a follow through with his other foot. I think he goes in high. For me, it's definitely a yellow card. The only thing I can think of that has stopped the ref making the decision is Share's reaction. So if I might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain he keeps the ball and he's just limping with it. Whereas if he goes down,
I don't think.
If he goes down and makes a little bit more of a sort of a meal of it, you could argue that he changes his mind. He goes in the book, whether that's yellow or red. But it was a pretty nasty challenge. I thought that was probably one of many things the ref got wrong. I think he was just letting far too much, like you say, letting far too much go. Which brings me, if I can just quickly jump to it, their penalty shout in the second half. So initially, I thought he's looking for it. I thought there was maybe a trip with Botman, but Botman just gets his stud to the ball, and I think it's Awoni, I think you could pronounce it. He is stumbling, and I think, oh well, he's just looking for contact because he can see Dubravka go down. So that was my first thought, and all yesterday I was thinking, nah, it's not a penalty. I've watched it back, and there's an angle, like it's quite far back, and it's from behind the goal, and you can see Dubravka's arm come up and reach for it. So I can see it. If it was given, I don't think it gets overturned. But I can also see, based on the images that we seen at VAR were checking, I can see why it's not given. But I can appreciate why Forest would feel massively aggrieved with that one.
Just to throw my opinion in there as well, I'm the same as you, Ian. I think Dubravka goes down, then obviously doesn't make contact. Then it looks like his arm bounces off the deck, and an instant reaction, he puts his hand up again, and that's obviously where the contact comes in. I think at that point the ball's probably far too gone anyway for Forest to do anything with it at that point. But having said that, it doesn't really make a difference where the ball is on the field or in the box. If that was the other way around, and this is how I judge every sort of challenge and thing like that, if that was the other way around, I'm screaming for a penalty all day long. What's your thoughts, Daryl?
Yeah, exactly the same. And I thought that Forest were very desperately unlucky not to get that penalty. But again, when you like Iain said, when you see the footage back and you just look at all the different angles, Awoni's already stumbling from the miscontrol in the first place, and then it's almost as if he sort of gets the control of the ball, and then Botman comes in and takes a nick on it with his foot in his tackle, and Awoni's already off balance at this point, and he suddenly seems to stop. Like there's a sudden slowdown in his movement, and then all of a sudden he realizes that Baraka's suddenly ahead of him, and then all of a sudden you sort of see him step forward, and that's where he appears to leave his left foot in.
It's a dangling leg, isn't it?
He does. He leaves it dangling and hoping for the contact to then win the penalty. And
do you know what it is? We can't badmouth them for doing that because
no,
we see
absolutely
Anthony
not.
Gordon do it X amount of times a game. He's an expert at Gordon doing it. If that's us in the same position, and we know for fine well we're not getting to that ball and the chance is gone, Gordon, 10 out of 10 times, he does exactly the same. But chances are Gordon probably wins the penalty. We've seen it so many times this season as well. Penalties, free kicks, whatever it may be. Gordon's very, very good at doing it. So I can't sit here and criticise a player for doing it because we do it just as much as everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
What disappointed me the most about that was it was literally just a ball from their keeper. I think our centre halves were so far apart. And to be honest, I think we did struggle with that Awoni's physicality. There was a couple of times in the first half where Cher just got absolutely bossed through sheer strength. But yeah, that was the disappointing thing. Like I've said, if it gets given a penalty, I don't think it gets overturned, and it's not a penalty. And like you said, if that's Newcastle, if that's Callum Wilson, you're screaming for a penalty. So I do think we've got lucky there. But then obviously the way the game transpired, we sort of took full advantage of that, which was good to see, I thought, because of late we've really not managed games well, whether that be sort of substitutions, whether that be tactics, whereas I think we did do a lot better, and credit to Eddie how he has learned from his mistake against Luton in previous games. And obviously we'll touch on the third goal if you want to run through that.
Yeah, so third goal comes out of nothing other than a Newcastle high press once again. It's a mistake from the back from Forest, and Bruno's not the quickest in the world as well. We know that, but he's one step ahead of the Forest players at that point. He knows that he can get this ball, and it's a lazy pass. It's a lazy pass out, and Bruno just picks it up. And my God, Daryl, what a finish! Like he just tucks that into the corner. Helps that Matt Sells is in goal.
Yeah. You know, there's so many factors that lead up to that goal that it just goes to show that the old adage of what our philosophy is intensity, and the way it builds in is that lazy pass that you mentioned is heading towards Morgan Gibbs-White. Now Morgan Gibbs-White, as we know, is such an exceptional player. However, on this occasion, he doesn't even know where Bruno is. Doesn't expect Bruno to come in from nowhere and nick it off his feet. So he's just stood there. He's not anticipating anything around him at this point, apart from this ball's coming to me. I'm going to take this ball and turn and run. And then Bruno just suddenly nicks in over his left shoulder and steps in front of him, wins the ball. And Morgan Gibbs-White at this point is flat-footed, so he's not coming back to retrieve anything off that. And then there's a great block on the defender coming out by Dan Burn at this point, just to hold off, which gives Bruno even more space, and he just takes a step, sets himself up, and just bends it around two defenders in the bottom corner.
I think that's the best thing about it as well, Iain. It's a fact that Bruno is so composed. He opens his body up, and like Daryl said, he just bends that round the two players that he needs to. He's got a tiny space to aim at, and anywhere else, it's probably going to get saved. Let's be honest with you. I think Sells does get a slight touch on it. Can't stop it. It's just such a great finish.
No, it is, and I think that was sort of indicative of the role he was playing yesterday, because I thought he was playing a little bit further forward than what he usually plays, and I think that's massively benefited. We were seeing last season, he had that little run of form where I think it might have been the Brentford game. There was a game not far after that, might have been Southampton, where he was picking the ball up in that area, sort of cutting inside and bending it in that corner that he favours. But I thought he was tremendous yesterday, and I think after the game he said that he was lucky that he was playing because he must had an illness or something, and he had to sure he said he had the shits or something, so he was knackered. But I much preferred him in the role he played yesterday. And as Daryl was saying, that was helped by the fact that Trippier was just sort of sitting with Miley on occasion. But yeah, it's a good finish. It's nice to see him on the score sheet because I think, as best he said yesterday, I think that's the only kit that he scored in this season.
Yeah.
That being said, that's because his hand's been forced to play in that sort of number 6, which we know he's not. He does a job, but he's not a natural number 6. He's much more suited in the role that he was playing yesterday. But it was good to then hang on to the 3 points because obviously there's been occasions where we've either been leading or we've been sort of drawn the game and then we've not managed it well and we've not managed to sort of sit further and further back and started to look like that. But then how, again, like he did against Villa, recognised that that's what was happening and made those changes to see the 3 points out, which, like I say, it just shows that how he's capable of learning, because I have been a little bit critical of him lately in terms of he's sort of decision making during games and during situations like that. So it was nice to see, and then obviously topped off with 3 points on the road again.
I think the main question is Daryl, and yes, it's great what Ian's saying that we'll manage to hold on to the game and see it out, because we have struggled at times this season to do that, especially backs against the wall as well. Situations we have struggled. It's great to get 3 points. Of course, it's always great to get 3 points, and I think that put up to 7th in the Premier League at that point. Obviously, things may change, I believe, with the games going on at the moment. But the main question, Daryl, is: did Bruno do more celebrations this time than what he did last time? Because he had a few in the bag again. Like, he had a few.
He was trying to fit them all in, wasn't he? Every time he was going. I think for each goal there was, well, for the first one I think there was 2 or 3, and then in the highlight of the second one there's another 2 or 3, and then at the full time when he's over to the crowd there's about another 4, 5, 6. He's pulling out every single one in his repertoire.
It's like when you just bash the controller on FIFA, yeah. Expecting him to do his Daryl's hamstring pull.
Hey, it's coming. But yeah, I mean, he's just doing all that, and you know what is fair play to him for playing it up to the crowd, like, because you know, I think in the aftermath, like in the post match when Sky were talking to him, it felt like they were trying to catch him out with the line of that questioning, and he was really, you know, he did really well to interpret it in a better way and to try and get it across in his own words.
I've missed this, Daryl. You're going to have to highlight me because I've missed it. I didn't see the interview after the game.
Post match, for whatever reason, Sky decided to focus on everything that went on in the transfer window about his future and things like that. And then it led to Bruno saying, "Well, our aim now is to qualify into a European competition at the end of the season, and we'll do everything for it." And he was asked about why he did the celebration like that. And it was to say, he basically said that's a message to the fans to not listen to anybody else talking about him and his future and his aims, and to listen to what he has to say. And
it is such a strange way of questioning that, because like we just highlighted, Bruno does about 10 celebrations. He's done that celebration well before the transfer window rumours had started. Like, you're going to sit and question every sort of celebration that he does, because you'd be there. It'd be another 90 minutes on top of that.
But yeah, it was really weird that they seemed to push that narrative. I thought it was very strange considering the transfer window ended a couple of weeks ago.
So they're looking for a headline. That's what
they're looking for. They're looking for a headline. They're looking for something. They're looking to try and catch him out into saying, "Well, I don't know what my future holds, etc." Well, he made it quite clear in what he said. He said he loves us and he appreciates the love that he gets from us, and his future, as far as he's concerned, is with us to push on and take the club forward. So I was really pleased that he said that. And you know, just to push back as well, we're talking about pushing Bruno's position further up the pitch. There was something Eddie Howe said in the aftermath of the game against Luton, where he said it towards the end of that game. He pushed Miley back into the 6 role and was really impressed with how he dealt with it. So I'm just beginning to wonder if this is going to be something that Eddie then tries to use going forward, and that'll then free Bruno up to go forward and be more of an influence in how we build up our attacks.
Yeah. So it's a great game to get the 3 points, Ian. We have Bournemouth coming up at the weekend as well. Hopefully another decent performance, another 3 points on the board. Then it's Arsenal the week after, I believe. So next week is crucial to hold our position and obviously and push for those European spots. But it's looking a lot better now. I think we'll just have to say that we went through a bit of a patch where I think everybody was a little bit worried that it wasn't even going to be a top 10 finish. But fingers crossed, we've seen the turning point in the last couple of games. I think we do need to focus on the defence quite a bit. I think that compared to last season, though there was a stat which Sky had put on about the goals conceded, but at this point this season, I think was I thought it was quite a few
37. So
different. Yeah,
this point last season it was 15, and after the same amount of games, 37, which I guess you have been missing players from sort of the odd game or two, and you've not had that collective back five. But for the majority, I'd say maybe since Pope's injury, you've had a settled back four, back five that you are leaking goals. But to caveat that as well, I'm sure they said that the expected goals that we should be conceding is like so much more than we actually are. So I think Martin
expected goal prevention or something.
Yeah,
like
they're just making up stats now.
Where are they getting them from?
It's shown that Dubravka's a shot stopper, because again he was questioned when he came in December. He there was a couple of goals where he was probably at fault for, but I think his performances against Liverpool, Man City, he has shown that he is sort of still capable of doing that. But yeah, definitely defensively, there needs to be sort of something done, because we are just leaking goals.
I think just to end it on a positive as well, Daryl, I think, yes, we're all worried about the striker situation. Callum Wilson, it just seemed like yesterday everything that touched bounced off him. He just couldn't get a control of anything that came towards him. And I'm a big Callum Wilson fan, but just yesterday wasn't his game. He's injured. We don't really know the extent of that, because once again, just go back to the point at the start, Eddie Howe just lies through his teeth when it comes to how fit a player is and injury concerns. But we mentioned this on Monday night's show just gone, that it's great to see goals coming from every position on the field once again. Bruno's on the score sheet now, getting his second and third of the season. Obviously, Fabian on a goal scoring streak, as it would seem. It's good to see those goals coming from everywhere else, when we're solely right now can't rely on strikers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was one of the key features of last season as well. We were able to get goals from all over the park. And you think, I'd be interested to see just how many, or how it compares to last season, about the number of different goal scorers that we've had this season.
Well, that Sheffield game helped.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, goodness me, it put everybody in, didn't it? But it's such a refreshing thing to see. It's like, you don't have to go that far back in our history to realise that we were relying on, three players to get all the goals forward. And, you've got everybody in midfield yesterday has scored this season. But three of the back four have scored this season, or all four of the back four have scored this season, at least once. And then obviously everybody across the front line's got a goal as well. So there's goals across the team, and that includes the lads on the bench as well. Harvey Barnes has got a couple now already, and he's spent most of the season injured as well. So there's a lot of positives to take, and obviously we've still got a couple of lads to come back from injury as well. And we know what Joe Willock's capable of, and hopefully he'll be back soon. And doesn't go without saying about Alexander Isak. I don't even have to mention anything about him apart from his name. So it is really good to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes going forward.
Those are all listening to the audio, just in case you're all worried. Nichol did drop off at the start of this. Just if you've been thinking that Nichol kid's quite quiet, his internet connection dropped off at the start of this. Just to end it as well, I just want to say, people, if you did watch the match preview, you would have saw Andy was on there. Andy managed to make it down to Forest, and if you haven't seen the video of Andy in the Nottingham Forest home end celebrating at the end of full time, go and find it, because it's absolutely amazing. He was spotted by a couple of the Newcastle fans in the away end that had zoomed in on him, just dancing his little socks off, wasn't he? I loved
and then all of a
messaged
sudden he
him
gets
first
swarmed.
thing. Honestly, messaged him first thing this morning saying, I absolutely love that. It was like a proud dad moment for me, just seeing him there dancing. But yeah, thanks, boys. It's been a pleasure. It's always great to talk about Newcastle United victory, especially obviously a little bit of revenge on Forest as well, what they did to us at St James's Park. Been a pleasure. I'll be back on Monday night for the All With Smiling Faces podcast, which is live at 8:10 with myself, Bestie, Mark, and Degger. I'm sure there'll be fireworks on there once again.
And the magic words.
And the magic words. The magic words will be back as well. Thanks, everybody. See you later. Ta-ra.
Bye.